Gather round, dear friends, and let me tell you a tale. As the stars twinkle in the night sky and the world grows quiet, I invite you to listen closely to a story that's both true and a little scary. It's a tale of courage and compassion, of a man who kept watch over his town when darkness fell. As you settle in, let your eyes grow heavy and your worries drift away, for this is a story meant to soothe your mind while gently sparking a thrill of adventure. Close your eyes if you wish, and let's journey into the night with the Night Watchman. Once upon a time, in a small, sleepy town nestled between rolling hills, there lived a man named Thomas. Thomas was the Night Watchman, a kind soul who patrolled the streets after the sun went down. Each evening, as the clock struck 9, he would grab his trusty lantern, its glass glowing warmly, and step out into the soft embrace of the night. The lantern was more than just a source of light. It was a symbol of his dedication, a beacon of safety for the townspeople who drifted into slumber, trusting him to keep watch over them. The townspeople admired Thomas for his unwavering dedication. They often left their doors unlocked, a sign of their faith in his vigilance. Mothers would tuck their children into bed, whispering, "Don't worry, Thomas is out there watching over us." His nightly patrols were like clockwork. They knew that while they dreamed peacefully, he was out there, ensuring their safety. Each night, as Thomas walked the cobblestone paths, he listened to the soothing sounds of the night. The gentle rustling of leaves, the soft croaking of frogs from the nearby pond, and the distant hooting of owls. These sounds wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. But on one particular night, a strange chill filled the air, making the townsfolk uneasy. Whispers filled the cozy homes, tales of shadows that danced in the corners of their vision, and sounds that echoed through the stillness. Thomas sensed it too. The night felt different, thicker somehow, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Still, he donned his cloak and stepped out into the moonlit street, determined to maintain the peace. The path was familiar, but each step felt heavier as he walked. The trees swayed gently, their branches whispering secrets that only the night could understand. As he passed the old oak tree, its gnarled branches sprawling out like arms welcoming the night, a figure caught his eye. It was just a shadow, he thought, but it moved quickly behind the tree. His heart raced momentarily. But Thomas reminded himself that he was the watchman. "There's nothing to fear," he whispered to himself, pushing away his worries as he approached the tree. To his relief, it was only a stray cat, its eyes glowing like tiny lanterns in the dark. "You scared me, little one," he chuckled softly, bending down to pet the cat, its purring a soothing balm to his nerves. But as he continued his patrol, the sense of unease returned. He felt as if someone or something was watching him from the shadows, a sensation that tingled at the back of his neck and sent a shiver down his spine. As he walked further into the night, the clock tower chimed midnight, its haunting melody echoing through the quiet streets. The sound resonated within him, a reminder of the duty he had undertaken. Just then, he heard a faint whisper, barely distinguishable, as if carried by the wind. "Help me, help me." It was a voice filled with urgency and desperation, sending a shiver through his core. Thomas followed the sound, determined to uncover its source. Even though a part of him whispered to turn back, he made his way toward the abandoned house at the end of the street, a place that had been empty for years. Its windows were dark, and the door hung slightly ajar, creaking ominously in the breeze. The townsfolk often shared tales about the house, stories of strange noises and flickering lights that would fill its empty rooms. Thomas paused at the threshold, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of the night pressing down on him, but the whisper grew louder, echoing in the stillness. "Help me." Gathering his courage, Thomas stepped onto the creaking porch. "Is anyone there?" he called out, his voice steady despite the rising tide of fear within him. There was no reply, just the rustling of leaves. He felt a shiver run down his spine, but pressed on. The door creaked open wider, revealing a dark hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly into the gloom. Thomas took a cautious step inside. the cool air brushing against his skin like a ghostly touch. The whisper echoed again, now sounding more desperate. "Help me. I'm trapped." Each word felt like a plea that resonated with his very soul. Thomas's heart raced, but he couldn't turn back now. "I'm coming. Just hold on," he shouted, his voice a beacon of determination in the darkness. He moved deeper into the house, each step sending dust motes swirling in the air, illuminated by the faint glow of his lantern. As he wandered through the musty rooms, he noticed the remnants of a life once lived. Faded photographs lining the walls, furniture draped in sheets, and a thick layer of dust covering everything like a shroud. The atmosphere felt thick, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Thomas followed the voice, feeling a strange pull toward a staircase that spiraled upward into darkness. With each step he climbed, he felt a mix of fear and determination pushing him forward. "Please help me." The voice was clearer now, echoing in his ears like a haunting melody. He gathered his resolve, knowing that he had to see this through. Reaching the top of the staircase, Thomas faced a door that stood slightly ajar, a crack of darkness beckoning him in. "Is this where you are?" he called out, stepping closer. The air felt electric, tinged with an energy he couldn't explain. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open and his lantern's light spilled into the room, illuminating a dim space filled with shadows. In the center stood an old mirror, cracked and dusty, its surface marred by time. As he approached, he felt a strange sensation, as if the mirror was pulling at him, urging him to come closer. That's when he saw her. A figure in the mirror, a young girl, her face pale and frightened, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm trapped here," she cried, her voice filled with sorrow that echoed in the room. "What do you mean?" Thomas asked, stepping closer, his heart racing. The girl's reflection began to shimmer, and he realized that she was not just trapped in the room, but in the mirror itself. "I need you to break the glass. It's the only way I can be free," she pleaded, her voice trembling. Thomas hesitated, fear gripping his heart. Breaking the mirror seemed dangerous, but the desperation in her voice urged him on. With a deep breath, he picked up a heavy candlestick from a nearby table, feeling its weight in his hands. "Hold on," he shouted, raising it high, ready to shatter the barrier that held her captive. "I'm going to set you free." He swung it at the mirror, and with a loud crash, the glass shattered, scattering shards across the floor like falling stars. A rush of wind filled the room, and the girl's figure began to fade, leaving behind a swirl of sparkling light that danced in the air. "Thank you," she whispered as she vanished, her voice lingering like a soft echo. Thomas stood there, stunned, feeling a mix of relief and confusion wash over him. Had he really set her free? Suddenly, the house trembled beneath him, and he felt an urgent need to leave. The air grew thick with an unnameable dread, pushing him toward the door as if the very walls were urging him to escape. As he burst through the front door, the night air felt different, lighter, almost electric. The stars shone brighter than before, and he could hear the distant sounds of the town awakening from its slumber. But deep down, Thomas knew that he had disturbed something in that house. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was not alone. The shadows seemed to stretch and sway as he walked, and for a moment, he thought he caught glimpses of figures darting just beyond the edge of his lantern's light. He resumed his patrol, the lantern swaying gently in his hand. Each step felt heavier, the cobblestones cool against his feet. As he walked, he began to see flickers of light dancing in the shadows, just out of reach. Was it his imagination, or was something else lurking in the night? Thomas wondered if the girl had truly been freed, or if something had followed him into the darkness. The clock tower chimed again, its familiar sound both comforting and unsettling. Each chime felt like a heartbeat, reminding him of the time that slipped away as he navigated the eerie atmosphere. As he neared the town square, the laughter echoed again, a soft, eerie sound that sent chills down his spine. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling slightly. No one answered, but the laughter continued, teasing and distant, weaving through the stillness like a wisp of smoke. He quickened his pace, determined to finish his watch. As he reached the town square, he noticed a small crowd gathering, their faces illuminated by the lanterns they carried. Curiosity piqued, he approached them, his heart pounding in his chest. What had drawn them all together at this hour? As he drew nearer, he could see that they were staring at something in awe, their expressions a mix of wonder and fear. In the center of the square stood a fountain, its waters shimmering like silver under the moonlight, but it was a reflection in the water that captured everyone's attention. A beautiful girl, her smile radiant as if thanking them for something. Thomas realized it was the same girl from the mirror, the one he had seen moments ago. She appeared vibrant and alive, her spirit glowing with a light that dispelled the darkness surrounding them. "She's free now," one of the townspeople whispered, eyes wide with wonder. "She's here." Thomas felt a rush of relief wash over him, knowing that he had played a part in setting her spirit free. He stepped back, allowing the townspeople to marvel at the sight before them. The laughter he had heard earlier was now joyous, filled with the thrill of magic and mystery. The girl seemed to be dancing in the water, her reflection rippling like a gentle breeze across the surface. As dawn approached, the first light of morning began to break on the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold. The townspeople gathered closer to the fountain, their laughter echoing through the square, a melody of hope and joy. Thomas felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of purpose that invigorated his spirit. He had faced the darkness, confronted the unknown, and emerged victorious. But as the sun rose higher, he could feel a shift in the atmosphere. The joyous laughter of the townsfolk was overshadowed by an unsettling feeling that lingered in the air. As he stepped away from the crowd, he felt a strange sensation at the back of his mind, a whisper of uncertainty that made him pause. Had he truly freed the girl, or had he opened a door to something far more sinister? With each passing moment, the brightness of the day washed away the remnants of the night, but the unease still clung to him. The townsfolk began to disperse, their excitement carrying them away, but Thomas lingered by the fountain, staring at the shimmering waters. The image of the girl had vanished, yet the essence of her presence remained, a lingering reminder of the night's events. As the first rays of sunlight kissed the ground, he decided to head back to the abandoned house. He felt an irresistible pull, as if the house still held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Taking a deep breath, he retraced the steps, the path familiar, yet filled with the weight of his experience. Each step toward the house felt heavy with anticipation. When he arrived, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the once dark corners of the porch. The door stood slightly ajar, inviting yet foreboding. As he crossed the threshold, the air felt different, charged with a strange energy that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The remnants of the night clung to the walls, whispers of stories, yet untold echoing in the silence. Determined, he stepped inside, his lantern now an unnecessary accessory in the bright light of day. The rooms appeared as they had the night before, but the atmosphere felt lighter, almost hopeful. Yet, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that he was not finished here. He moved through the house, searching for any signs of the girl or the mysteries that lingered. In the corner of the main room, he noticed something glinting on the floor, one of the shards of glass from the shattered mirror. He knelt down, picking it up gently, feeling the cool surface against his fingers. It reflected the light beautifully, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it held more than just a reflection. It was a piece of a larger puzzle. As he stood, the shard slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. The sound echoed in the stillness, and for a moment he felt as if the house had paused, holding its breath. "What secrets do you hold?" he whispered, the words slipping from his lips like a prayer. The air around him shifted, and he sensed that he was being watched once again. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the room, causing the curtains to billow and swirl. Thomas's heart raced as he felt the presence of something unseen, a force that seemed to tug at the edges of reality. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a tempest. "Help us!" they called, a chorus of voices mingling together in desperation. He took a step back, feeling the weight of their pleas. Who are you? What do you want? He shouted, his voice breaking through the cacophony of sound. The room fell silent, the wind stilling as if it was waiting for his next move. Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself, remembering the girl and the promise he had made. I'm here to help, he declared, his voice steady. If you're trapped, I will do whatever it takes to set you free. The air around him shimmered, and he felt a wave of energy pulse through the room. The walls seemed to tremble, and shadows began to dance in the corners, coalescing into shapes that hovered just beyond his vision. As he stood there, his heart pounding, Thomas felt a connection, a bond forged by empathy and understanding. The spirits within the house were not merely trapped. They were lost, seeking solace and release from the shackles of their past. He had opened a door, and now it was his duty to help them find peace. With determination swelling within him, Thomas began to speak, reaching out to the voices that swirled around him. I know you're here. I want to hear your stories. Share with me what binds you to this place, and together, we can find a way to set you free. The shadows flickered, and for a moment, he thought he saw faces forming in the darkness. Pale, mournful expressions that reflected sorrow and longing. And so, Thomas stood in the heart of the house, a watchman not just of the physical world, but of the unseen realm that existed alongside it. As he listened to the whispers, he knew that this night was only the beginning. There were stories to uncover, spirits to help, and a journey ahead that would require all the courage he could muster. The Night Watchman had a new purpose, one that would take him deeper into the mysteries of the darkness and the light that dwelled within. The house seemed to pulse with energy, the very walls alive with the echoes of the past. As Thomas stood in the center of the room, he closed his eyes, letting the whispers wash over him. Each voice was unique, each story begging to be heard. He could feel their pain and their yearning for freedom. The air thickened with emotion, and Thomas knew he had to delve deeper into the heart of this mystery. Please, he urged softly, tell me your stories. I am here to listen. As the words left his mouth, a profound stillness enveloped the room, as if the spirits were considering his offer. The shadows flickered again, swirling around him like a gentle breeze, and he felt a rush of warmth, a sign of their acceptance. One voice broke through the silence, a soft, trembling sound that resonated within him. I was once a child, it said, filled with sorrow. I played in this house, filled with laughter and dreams. But one fateful night, darkness came, and my laughter was silenced. The voice belonged to a girl, her spirit tethered to the house, longing for release. Thomas felt a pang of sadness for the child, and he took a step closer to the source of the voice. What happened? How can I help you? He asked, his heart aching for the lost soul. The girl's voice trembled again, and the shadows coalesced into a figure, a faint outline of a small child, her eyes wide with fear and longing. I was lost in a storm, the girl continued, her voice soft like a whisper of wind. I hid in the attic, hoping to escape the thunder and lightning. But when the storm passed, I never found my way back. I'm trapped in this house, forever waiting for someone to find me. As her words sank in, Thomas felt a surge of compassion. You don't have to wait anymore. I'm here. We can find a way to free you, he promised, feeling the weight of her sadness. What do we need to do? The girl's figure flickered, and for a moment, Thomas could see her face more clearly, a visage of innocence lost. You must find the key, she said, her voice growing faint. It's hidden in the attic, where I last felt safe. But beware the shadows. They guard it fiercely. Determined, Thomas nodded, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I will find the key, he vowed. I promise to set you free. As the girl's figure faded back into the shadows, a flicker of hope sparked within him. Taking a deep breath, Thomas made his way to the staircase that spiraled upward. The steps creaked beneath his weight, each sound echoing in the stillness, a reminder of the weight of the past that lingered in the air. As he climbed, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air thick with anticipation. He reached the attic door, its surface worn and splintered, and paused for a moment, steeling himself for what lay beyond. With a firm push, the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit space filled with dust and forgotten memories. Boxes were stacked haphazardly against the walls, their contents hidden beneath layers of cobwebs. The air was stale, carrying the scent of neglect and loss. But Thomas's resolve remained unshaken. He had come too far to turn back now. He stepped inside, lantern held high, illuminating the room with its warm glow. As he scanned the space, his heart raced at the thought of uncovering the key that would unlock the girl's freedom. He moved cautiously, stepping over boxes and debris, his eyes searching for any sign of the hidden treasure. Suddenly, he heard a sound of faint rustling, as if something was stirring in the shadows. Thomas paused, straining to listen. The sound grew louder, and he felt a chill run down his spine. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice echoing through the attic. The rustling ceased, and an unsettling silence settled over the room. Thomas's heart raced as he took another step deeper into the attic, the shadows seeming to stretch and bend around him. He spotted an old trunk in the corner, its edges ornate yet covered in dust. Could the key be hidden inside? As he approached, a sense of foreboding washed over him. The air felt charged, as if something were watching him from the darkness. He hesitated for a moment, contemplating the weight of what he was about to do, but the girl's voice echoed in his mind, urging him onward. "You must find the key," she had said. With trembling hands, he opened the trunk, its hinges creaking in protest. Inside lay a collection of trinkets, a faded dress, a broken toy, and various other belongings, all steeped in memories of the past. Thomas rummaged through the contents, searching for anything that resembled a key. As his fingers brushed against an object in the corner, he felt a jolt of energy surge through him. He pulled out a small ornate key, its surface intricately designed. It gleamed in the lantern light, reflecting a light that seemed to shimmer with hope. Thomas held it up, feeling a sense of triumph swell within him. "I found it!" he exclaimed, feeling the weight of the girl's sadness lift ever so slightly. But as he turned to leave the attic, the shadows shifted, coiling around him like tendrils of darkness. A whisper filled the air, a warning that sent a chill down his spine. "You should not have come here." Thomas's heart raced as he felt a rush of wind whip through the attic, extinguishing his lantern and plunging him into darkness. Panic surged within him, and he fumbled to relight the lantern, the flickering flame barely illuminating the room. In the shadows, figures began to materialize, shapes twisting and turning, their eyes glinting with malice. Thomas realized that these were the guardians of the key, the shadows that had kept the girl trapped for so long. "Leave this place," he shouted, clutching the key tightly in his hand. But the shadows only laughed, their voices a cacophony of despair and anger. "You cannot take what belongs to us," they hissed, closing in around him, their forms shifting and swirling like a dark storm. Thomas felt the weight of their darkness pressing against him, threatening to overwhelm his resolve. Drawing upon every ounce of courage, he held the key high. "I will not let you keep her trapped any longer," he declared, feeling a surge of power course through him. The shadows hesitated, flickering as if uncertain. "I am the Night Watchman, and I will protect the lost souls of this house." With those words, the shadows recoiled, and Thomas could see the girl's faint figure shimmering at the edge of the darkness. "Use the key," she urged, her voice a beacon of light amid the encroaching gloom. Thomas took a deep breath, the key clutched tightly in his hand, and rushed toward the door that led to the attic. As he inserted the key into the lock, the shadows surged forward, but he turned to face them. "You cannot hold her any longer," he shouted, twisting the key with all his might. The door swung open, and a rush of light poured into the attic, pushing back the darkness like a tide. With a burst of energy, the shadows shrieked, their forms dissipating as the light consumed them. Thomas felt the warmth of the sun on his skin as the darkness lifted, revealing the attic in its full glory. The girl's spirit floated beside him, radiant and free. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've set me free." Thomas smiled, the weight of the night lifting from his shoulders. Together, they stepped into the light, and as they did, the house transformed around them. The shadows melted away, revealing a space filled with warmth and love. No longer a prison, it became a sanctuary of memories, where laughter echoed once more. With the girl by his side, Thomas knew that he had fulfilled his promise. The Night Watchman had kept his vigil and uncovered the truth of the darkness that had once consumed the house. And in that moment, he realized that he was not just a protector of the living, but also a guide for the lost souls who sought solace in the night. As the first rays of dawn broke through the windows, Thomas turned to the girl, now shimmering with ethereal light. "Where will you go now?" he asked, a sense of peace washing over him. "I will find my way," she replied, her smile radiant. "You've given me the gift of freedom. I will carry your kindness with me always." With those words, she began to fade, her spirit merging with the light that filled the room. Thomas stood in awe, feeling a sense of fulfillment fill his heart. The shadows had been vanquished, and the house had transformed into a place of hope. He stepped outside, breathing in the fresh morning air, ready to face whatever the day would bring. And so, the Night Watchman continued his patrol, now with a deeper understanding of the darkness and the light that coexisted in the world. He had become a beacon for those who wandered lost, a protector not just of the living but of the spirits who sought to be remembered. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Thomas felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would carry the stories of the lost with him, always vigilant, always ready to listen. The Night Watchman's journey had only just begun, and he knew that as long as he walked the earth, he would be a guardian of the night and a friend to those who needed it most. As Thomas stepped back into the bright morning light, the world outside felt transformed. The shadows that once danced in the corners of his mind had lifted, replaced by the warm embrace of the sun. The townsfolk were beginning to stir, their laughter and chatter filling the air as they emerged from their homes, blissfully unaware of the night's events. With each step he took back into town, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The experience in the attic lingered in his mind, a reminder of the delicate balance between light and darkness. He had faced the unknown and emerged victorious, not just for himself but for the spirits he had encountered. The girl's voice echoed softly in his mind, a promise that he would carry with him always. As he walked through the town square, he noticed the children playing, their laughter bright and carefree. They reminded him of the girl he had freed, a symbol of innocence and joy. He smiled, feeling the warmth of their happiness seep into his heart. But a shadow of worry flickered in the back of his mind. What if there were more lost souls waiting for someone to help them? With that thought, Thomas decided to visit the local library. The town's history was rich with tales of the past, and he hoped to uncover more about the spirits that lingered in the shadows. The library, a charming brick building adorned with ivy, was a treasure trove of knowledge. As he pushed open the heavy wooden door, the familiar scent of old books welcomed him like an old friend. Inside, the librarian, Mrs. Hastings, greeted him with a warm smile. "Ah, Thomas, out on another adventure, I see," she said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Thomas chuckled, feeling a sense of camaraderie with the kind woman. "You could say that. I'm looking for stories, old ones, about the town and its past." Mrs. Hastings nodded knowingly, leading him to a section filled with dusty tomes and worn-out books. "You might find what you're looking for in this section," she said, gesturing to a row of history books. "Many tales are hidden within these pages, waiting for someone to uncover them." Thomas spent hours poring over the books, each page revealing snippets of history, tales of love and loss, of laughter and sorrow. He learned of the town's founding, its struggles during hard times, and the spirits that had become part of its fabric. One story in particular caught his attention, the tale of a woman named Eliza, a healer who had once lived in the town. According to legend, she had helped many but had also faced accusations of witchcraft, ultimately leading to her tragic demise. Intrigued, Thomas delved deeper, discovering that Eliza's spirit was said to wander the woods on the outskirts of town, seeking solace and understanding. Could she be another lost soul? Thomas wondered aloud, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit together in his mind. After a long afternoon of research, Thomas thanked Mrs. Hastings for her help and made his way to the edge of town, where the woods beckoned. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the landscape. As he approached the forest, he felt a shift in the air, a sense of anticipation tinged with unease. The trees loomed tall and thick, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. As he stepped into the woods, the sounds of the town faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the very earth was alive with stories waiting to be told. Thomas ventured deeper into the woods, following a narrow path that wound through the trees. He remembered the girl's words, how she had felt lost and afraid. With each step, he called out softly, "Eliza, I'm here to listen." His voice echoed in the stillness, mingling with the whispers of the trees. After walking for some time, he stumbled upon a clearing bathed in dappled sunlight. In the center stood an ancient oak tree, its gnarled roots sprawling like a web. The sight was mesmerizing, but as he approached, he felt a presence, something watching him from the shadows. "Who dares enter my woods?" A voice rang out, both melodic and haunting. Thomas turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, an ethereal woman, her long hair flowing like water, her eyes filled with sorrow and wisdom. "I am Eliza," she said softly, her voice weaving through the air like a gentle breeze. "What brings you to my sanctuary?" Gathering his courage, Thomas stepped forward, feeling the weight of her gaze upon him. "I've come to listen to your story," he replied, his voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in his stomach. "I want to understand what binds you to this place." Eliza regarded him thoughtfully, her expression a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "Few have sought me out for the truth," she said, her voice tinged with melancholy. "In life, I was a healer, a friend to many, but fear and misunderstanding turned my neighbors against me. I became a victim of their fears, accused of things I did not do." As she spoke, Thomas felt a deep empathy for her plight. "I've heard the tales of your kindness," he replied, "and I want to help you find peace. What can I do?" Eliza's gaze softened, and she seemed to relax slightly. "There is a place where my heart lies, buried beneath the roots of this tree," she said, gesturing to the ancient oak. "If you can retrieve it, I may finally find the rest I seek." Thomas nodded, determination filling him. "I will do it. Tell me how." With a gentle wave of her hand, Eliza summoned a soft breeze that rustled the leaves. "Dig at the base of the tree, and you shall find what I have left behind. But be cautious. The shadows guard my heart fiercely, just as they did in life." Taking a deep breath, Thomas approached the base of the tree, the earth cool and inviting beneath his fingertips. He began to dig, feeling the weight of the task ahead. As he worked, the air around him grew colder, and he sensed the presence of the shadows lurking just beyond the edges of the clearing. With each handful of earth he removed, the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices warning him to stop. "You should not disturb the past," they hissed, swirling around him like a storm. But Thomas pressed on, driven by the desire to help Eliza find her peace. Finally, he felt something solid beneath his fingers, a small wooden box, worn but intricately carved. He pulled it from the ground, feeling a surge of energy pulse through him. As he opened the box, a warm light spilled forth, illuminating the clearing. Inside lay a delicate heart-shaped locket, its surface engraved with beautiful designs. "This is my heart," Eliza whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "You have freed me from the bonds of my past." As Thomas held the locket, he felt the warmth of Eliza's spirit envelop him, filling him with a sense of comfort and love. "You have shown me kindness in a world that once turned its back on me," she said, her voice radiant. "With this, I can finally rest." The shadows around them began to dissipate, their grip on the clearing loosening as Eliza's spirit shimmered brightly. Thomas watched in awe as the light enveloped her, transforming the darkness into a warm glow. "Thank you, dear watchman," she said, her voice echoing like a soft melody. "You have given me the gift of freedom." With those final words, Eliza's spirit ascended, a brilliant light that filled the clearing. Thomas felt a wave of warmth wash over him, a sense of fulfillment that transcended the darkness. The shadows that had once haunted the woods now fled, leaving behind a serene stillness. As the sunlight poured into the clearing, Thomas took a moment to breathe in the fresh air, feeling lighter than ever. He had not only freed Eliza, but had also forged a deeper connection with the world around him. He understood now that being a watchman meant more than just keeping vigil. It was about listening, understanding, and helping those in need. As he made his way back to town, Thomas couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The stories he had uncovered were more than just tales of the past. They were reminders of the importance of compassion and understanding. He had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, a guardian of both the living and the lost. Back in town, the sun shone brightly, and the townsfolk greeted him with smiles and waves. Thomas felt a renewed sense of belonging, a bond with the community that extended beyond the physical realm. He had become more than just a watchman. He was now a protector of their stories. Later that evening, as twilight descended, Thomas prepared for his nightly patrol. With his lantern in hand, he stepped into the cool night air, feeling the weight of the day's experiences settle in his heart. As he walked through the streets, he reflected on the connections he had forged and the souls he had helped. But as he turned the corner toward the abandoned house once more, a feeling of unease crept into his mind. The darkness seemed thicker, and he sensed that his work was not yet finished. What other stories await me? He wondered, feeling the thrill of the unknown stirring within him. As he approached the house, he noticed something unusual. The door stood wide open, swinging gently in the breeze. A sense of foreboding washed over him, but he stepped inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards echoing in the stillness. The air felt heavy, charged with energy, and he sensed that he was not alone. "Who's there?" he called out, his heart racing as he gripped the lantern tightly. From the shadows emerged a figure, cloaked in darkness, their face obscured. "You seek the truth, Night Watchman," the voice echoed, both alluring and chilling. "But beware, for the shadows have their own stories to tell." Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. "What do you want?" he asked, standing his ground despite the rising tension. The figure stepped closer, revealing glimpses of a pale face framed by darkness. "I am a keeper of secrets, and I have come to challenge your resolve. Are you willing to face the darkness once more?" With a deep breath, Thomas nodded. "I am. I will not turn away from the truth." The figure smiled, a sly, enigmatic grin. "Very well. Follow me, and let us uncover the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows." And so, Thomas stepped deeper into the darkness, ready to confront whatever awaited him. He was not just a night watchman. He was a seeker of truths, a guardian of souls, and he would face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and compassion. As the figure beckoned him deeper into the house, Thomas felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He followed the cloaked figure through the dimly lit corridors, the air thick with anticipation. Each step echoed in the silence, the shadows swirling around them like a living entity, watching and waiting. The figure led him to a door at the end of the hallway, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story of their own. "Beyond this door lies a realm where shadows gather," the figure said, their voice low and resonant. "Are you ready to confront what lies within?" Thomas took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I am," he replied, determination surging through him. He understood that every story, even the darkest ones, deserved to be told and acknowledged. With that, the figure pushed the door open, revealing a room bathed in dim, flickering light. Inside, the air felt charged with energy, and Thomas was struck by the sight before him. The room was filled with mirrors of all shapes and sizes, each reflecting a different aspect of the world. Some showing light, others darkness, and some revealing haunting images that tugged at his heart. He could see shadows moving within the glass, swirling like wisps of smoke. "Welcome to the Chamber of Reflections," the figure said, stepping back to allow Thomas to enter. "Here, you will face the truths you've uncovered and those you have yet to discover. Each mirror holds a story, a fragment of a soul lost in the shadows." As Thomas moved closer to one of the mirrors, he saw a glimpse of his own reflection, but it was altered, distorted by the weight of his fears and insecurities. He felt a shiver run down his spine as the reflection morphed into images of the lost souls he had encountered, the girl from the fountain, Eliza, and others he had yet to meet. "What is this?" Thomas whispered, feeling a swell of emotions rise within him. "The mirrors reveal your journey," the figure explained, their voice echoing in the stillness. "They show you the connections you forged and the souls that still linger. But be warned, facing the truth is not always easy." Taking a deep breath, Thomas stepped closer to one of the mirrors, its surface shimmering like water. As he gazed into it, he was transported into a memory. He stood in the town square, surrounded by laughter, but beneath the joy lay an undercurrent of fear and misunderstanding. He watched as townsfolk whispered and pointed, their eyes filled with suspicion. "Is this how it was?" he asked, a sense of unease washing over him. "Yes," the figure replied, their tone solemn. "Fear breeds shadows, and shadows feed on fear. You have begun to uncover the truth, but there are those who wish to keep it hidden." Suddenly, the mirror shifted again, revealing another scene. A woman standing alone in a dimly lit room, her face twisted in anguish. "Who is she?" Thomas asked, his heart aching at the sight. "She is a spirit bound by the past, one of many who have suffered at the hands of fear and misunderstanding. Her story remains untold, and until it is, she will remain lost," the figure explained, their eyes narrowing with intensity. Thomas felt a surge of compassion for the woman in the mirror. "I will help her," he vowed, his resolve solidifying. "What must I do?" The figure gestured toward another mirror, one adorned with symbols of hope and healing. "To free her, you must first confront your own fears and understand the weight of the past. Only then can you guide her to freedom." With determination, Thomas approached a new mirror. As he looked into its depths, he saw his own reflection again, but this time it was filled with light, his heart strong, his spirit unwavering. He realized that he had the power to change the narrative, to rewrite the stories that had long been overshadowed by fear. "I will not let fear dictate my actions," he declared, his voice steady. "I will be a beacon of hope for those who are lost." The figure nodded, a glimmer of approval in their eyes. "Then you are ready. Step into the mirror and let the journey begin." Without hesitation, Thomas reached out and touched the surface of the glass. It felt cool and inviting, as if beckoning him to enter. As he stepped through, he felt a rush of energy envelop him, transporting him to a new realm. He found himself in a dimly lit space, the air thick with tension. Shadows loomed around him, swirling like a tempest, and he felt the weight of their despair pressing against him. In the center of the room stood the woman from the mirror, her expression one of sorrow and longing. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper as she looked at Thomas with wide, hopeful eyes. "I am Thomas, a night watchman," he replied, stepping closer. "I've come to help you find peace." The woman regarded him cautiously, her features illuminated by the flickering light. "Many have come before you, but none have succeeded. The shadows hold me captive, feeding off my fears." Thomas felt the heaviness of her words. "I understand," he said softly, "but I believe that together we can break the chains that bind you. What do you fear most?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away. "I fear being forgotten. I fear that my story will be lost in the shadows." With empathy swelling in his heart, Thomas took a step closer. "Your story is important," he said firmly. "Let me help you tell it." The shadows around them began to swirl violently, their whispers growing louder, drowning out her voice. "You cannot free her," they cried. "She belongs to us. But Thomas stood his ground, feeling the warmth of the light within him. No, she will not be defined by fear. We will reclaim her story, he shouted, the words echoing with power. As he spoke, he felt the shadows recoil, their grip loosening. Tell me your story, he urged the woman, his voice steady. Share your truth. She hesitated for a moment, then began to speak, her voice trembling, but growing stronger with each word. I was a healer, like Eliza. I helped many, but I was also misunderstood. When the darkness came, I was blamed for things beyond my control. I lost everything. The people I loved, the life I had built. Thomas listened intently, feeling the weight of her pain. You are not alone, he reassured her. Your story matters, and it deserves to be heard. As she spoke, the shadows began to shift and waver, their hold on her weakening. Thomas could feel the energy in the room changing, a sense of hope filling the air. Together, we will break the chains of fear, he declared. With each word, the shadows faded, their whispers growing softer until they became a distant echo. The woman's spirit began to glow, her light merging with Thomas's own. Thank you, she whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. You have given me the courage to face my past. In that moment, the darkness dissolved completely, replaced by a brilliant light that filled the room. The woman's spirit transformed, her form becoming radiant and free. I will carry your kindness with me, she said, her voice a gentle breeze. You have set me free. As her spirit ascended, Thomas felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. The shadows that had once threatened to consume her were gone, replaced by a warm glow of hope. He knew that he had made a difference, not just for her, but for all the lost souls still lingering in the shadows. As the light enveloped him, Thomas was pulled back through the mirror, finding himself once again in the chamber of reflections. The cloaked figure awaited him, their expression one of approval. You have done well, Night Watchman, they said, their voice filled with respect. You have proven your strength and compassion. Thank you, Thomas replied, feeling the weight of their words. But there are still more stories to uncover. I cannot stop here. The figure nodded, a glimmer of understanding in their eyes. Then your journey continues. Many souls remain lost, and your heart is the key to their freedom. With that, the figure stepped aside, revealing a new path illuminated by flickering lanterns. Follow this path, and you will find the next soul in need of your help. But remember, the shadows may try to deceive you. Stay true to your purpose. Thomas took a deep breath, feeling a sense of resolve wash over him. He stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited him. The Night Watchman had become more than a guardian of stories. He was a beacon of hope, a protector of lost souls, and he would continue his journey until every story was told and every spirit set free. As Thomas walked down the newly illuminated path, the atmosphere shifted around him, filled with an energy that crackled in the air. The lanterns flickered, casting playful shadows that danced on the walls, almost as if inviting him to explore further. Each step he took echoed softly, a reminder of the weight of the stories yet to be uncovered. The path led him to a series of doors, each one uniquely adorned with symbols representing different emotions: fear, love, sorrow, and hope. He paused, contemplating which door to choose. The significance of these doors was not lost on him. Each one held the potential to reveal a new story, a new soul in need of understanding. He felt a pull towards a door marked with the symbol of sorrow, its surface worn and weathered. Taking a deep breath, Thomas pushed it open, the hinges creaking in protest. Inside, he found a room cloaked in deep shadows, the air heavy with sadness. At the center stood a figure draped in a cloak of darkness, their form trembling as if burdened by an invisible weight. Who dares to enter my domain? The figure's voice resonated, a mixture of pain and anger. I am Thomas, the Night Watchman, he replied, stepping forward with compassion in his heart. I've come to listen to your story. The figure hesitated, the shadows around them swirling anxiously. "You cannot save me," they said, their voice laced with despair. "I am bound to this place by my sorrow." Thomas felt a deep empathy for the figure. "But every story deserves to be heard," he insisted. "Your sorrow is valid, and sharing it can bring healing." The figure remained silent, but Thomas could sense the flicker of hope within. "What burdens your heart?" he gently asked, trying to create a space for the figure to share their pain. "I lost someone dear to me," they finally confessed, their voice barely above a whisper. "A friend who was taken too soon. I have carried the weight of that loss for so long, and it consumes me." Thomas nodded, understanding the gravity of grief. "I cannot take away your pain," he said softly, "but I can listen. You don't have to carry this burden alone." As he spoke, he stepped closer, feeling the energy in the room shift. The shadows around the figure began to waver, as if intrigued by his presence. "Tell me about your friend," Thomas encouraged, hoping to spark a connection. The figure hesitated again, but eventually began to speak, their voice trembling. "His name was Samuel. We were inseparable, bound by our dreams and laughter. But one fateful night, he was taken from me, and I was left with a void that cannot be filled." With each word, the shadows around them began to fade, the room filling with a soft light that countered the darkness. I watched him slip away, and in that moment I felt helpless. The pain of losing him has haunted me ever since. Thomas listened intently, feeling the weight of the figure's grief. "It's natural to feel sorrow after such a loss," he said gently. "But holding on to that pain can prevent you from moving forward. Your friend would want you to remember the joy you shared, not just the sorrow." The figure's form began to shift, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You think so?" they asked, vulnerability etched on their face. "I know so," Thomas replied, his voice steady. "You carry his memory within you. Celebrate the moments you had together. It's okay to grieve, but it's also important to honor his life." As he spoke, the shadows around them thinned further, allowing more light to flood the room. The figure looked down, their features softening as they processed Thomas's words. "But how can I let go of the sorrow?" they asked, their voice tinged with uncertainty. "By allowing yourself to feel it, to acknowledge it," Thomas explained. "Share your stories about him. Find joy in the memories, and know that he will always be a part of you." The figure looked up, their eyes filled with a mix of hope and doubt. I never thought of it that way," they admitted, their voice trembling. "Perhaps I've been so consumed by grief that I forgot to celebrate our friendship." With a newfound determination, Thomas stepped closer. "Would you like to share a story about him? Just one memory," he encouraged, hoping to ignite a spark of joy within the figure's heart. Taking a deep breath, the figure began to speak, their voice growing steadier. "There was a day when we explored the old forest together," they recalled, a smile beginning to form despite the sadness. "We discovered a hidden glade filled with wildflowers. Samuel danced among them, laughing, and I remember feeling so alive in that moment." As they spoke, the shadows around them began to dissipate, replaced by a warm glow that enveloped them both. Thomas could see the pain in the figure's eyes slowly transforming into something more: hope, love, and a sense of freedom. He loved nature, and his laughter was like music to my ears, the figure continued, their voice filled with warmth. "Remember that laughter," Thomas encouraged. "Let it be a reminder of the joy you shared, not just the sorrow of his absence." The figure nodded, tears of realization glistening in their eyes. "You're right. I can carry his memory with me. Cherish it rather than let it drown me in despair." With that realization, the shadows finally receded, revealing a bright, serene light that filled the room. The figure began to shimmer, their form transforming into a radiant spirit. "Thank you," they said, their voice now filled with gratitude. "You have given me the strength to honor his memory." As their spirit ascended, Thomas felt a wave of warmth envelop him, a profound sense of peace washing over him. The burden of sorrow that had once weighed the figure down was lifted, replaced by a radiant glow of love and remembrance. "Goodbye, my friend," the figure whispered as they ascended, their spirit merging with the light. "You have set me free." Thomas watched in awe, feeling the energy of the room shift once more. The shadows that had once clung to the figure melted away, leaving behind a space filled with warmth and love. He had helped another soul find their way, transforming sorrow into a celebration of life. As he exited the room, he turned to the cloaked figure waiting outside the door. "You have shown great compassion, Night Watchman," they said, their voice filled with admiration. "Your heart has guided you well." "I couldn't have done it without understanding their story," Thomas replied, a sense of fulfillment blossoming within him. "Every soul deserves to be heard." The cloaked figure nodded. "And your journey is far from over. Many more stories await you, each one unique and significant. Are you ready to continue?" "Absolutely," Thomas replied, feeling a surge of excitement. He understood that the Night Watchman's duty was not just to guard against darkness, but to illuminate the paths of those who had lost their way. The cloaked figure gestured to a new path, illuminated by flickering lanterns that seemed to beckon him forward. With renewed determination, Thomas stepped onto the path, ready to uncover the next story that awaited him. As Thomas ventured down the new path, the atmosphere around him shifted yet again. The air felt electric, tinged with anticipation and mystery. The flickering lanterns cast long shadows that danced along the cobblestone floor, leading him toward a doorway that seemed to pulse with a soft, inviting glow. He could feel the weight of the stories waiting to be told, and it filled him with both excitement and trepidation. Upon reaching the door, he hesitated for a moment, recalling the powerful emotions he had encountered in the Chamber of Reflections. Every story he had unearthed so far had revealed the complexities of love, loss, and the deep connections between souls. With a steadying breath, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was bathed in a warm, golden light that enveloped him like a comforting embrace. In the center stood a table adorned with candles, their flames flickering gently, casting shadows that seemed to sway in rhythm with an unseen melody. Around the table sat 4 figures, their faces obscured by hoods, but he could feel their collective gaze upon him. "Welcome, Thomas." One of the figures spoke, their voice soothing yet authoritative. "We are the keepers of memories, guardians of the tales that shape this realm. We have watched your journey and are pleased to see your compassion." Thomas felt a shiver of awe run through him. "I'm here to help those who are lost," he replied, the weight of their expectation pressing upon him. "I want to listen to their stories." The figures exchanged knowing glances. Then one of them gestured to a chair at the table. "Join us, and let us share the stories of those who seek solace. Each of us holds a memory, a piece of a greater tapestry woven from the lives of many." Thomas nodded, settling into the chair. The flickering candlelight illuminated the faces of the keepers, revealing expressions of kindness and wisdom. They looked like weary travelers, each carrying the weight of countless stories. The first keeper leaned forward, their voice soft but resonant. "I hold the memory of a woman named Miriam. In life, she was a devoted mother, but her heart was shattered by the loss of her child. Her grief is profound, and she wanders the fields outside the town, searching for a way to heal." Thomas felt a pang of sorrow for Miriam. "What can I do to help her?" he asked, his heart aching at the thought of a mother in mourning. "Listen to her story," the keeper replied, their gaze steady. "Allow her to share her pain, and in doing so, you may help her find a way to let go." With that, the second keeper spoke, their voice calm and measured. "I carry the memory of a young man named Leo. He was an artist, filled with dreams and aspirations. However, his fear of failure kept him from pursuing his passion, and now his spirit lingers in the town, longing for the courage to create." Thomas nodded, understanding the struggle of fear that could paralyze even the brightest souls. "I will do what I can to inspire him," he said, feeling the warmth of determination grow within him. The third keeper added, "I hold the memory of a soldier named Jacob. He fought bravely in battles, but returned home carrying the weight of guilt for the lives he could not save. He roams the outskirts of the town, burdened by the shadows of his past. Thomas felt the heaviness of Jacob's story settle in his chest. "How can I help him find peace?" he asked, eager to understand how he might lift the weight of that guilt. "Help him understand that he is not defined by his past," the keeper responded, their voice a gentle reminder. "Everyone carries burdens, but healing comes from forgiveness, both of oneself and others." Finally, the fourth keeper spoke, their tone filled with compassion. "I hold the memory of a child named Anya. She lived in joy but was taken too soon, her laughter echoing in the hearts of those who loved her. Her spirit wanders, seeking comfort and connection." Thomas's heart ached at the thought of Anya's untimely departure. "I will find a way to honor her memory," he vowed, his resolve strengthening with each story shared. The keepers nodded, their expressions a mix of pride and sadness. "You have a heavy task ahead of you, Thomas. These souls are intertwined in the fabric of this town, and your compassion will be their guiding light. Choose one memory to begin your journey." Taking a moment to reflect, Thomas felt drawn to Miriam, the grieving mother. He understood the profound sorrow of losing a child and felt an overwhelming desire to help her find solace. "I will start with Miriam," he declared, the determination in his voice unwavering. With a collective nod, the keepers raised their hands and a shimmering light enveloped Thomas. He felt himself being drawn into the memory, the world around him fading until he found himself standing in a field bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers, and in the distance, he could see a figure kneeling by a small grave adorned with fresh flowers. As he approached, he recognized the sorrow etched on her face. It was Miriam, her heart heavy with grief as she placed delicate blooms on the headstone. "Miriam," Thomas called softly, wanting to approach her with gentleness. She looked up, her eyes filled with sorrow and surprise. "Who are you?" "I'm Thomas," he replied, kneeling beside her. "I've come to listen to your story." Miriam hesitated, her gaze darting to the grave before returning to Thomas. "Why would you want to hear my pain?" she asked, her voice quivering. "Because your story matters," he said, his heart full of empathy. "You don't have to carry this burden alone. Sharing it may help you find a way to heal." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she looked at the grave. "My daughter, Lily, was everything to me. She was bright and full of life, and I couldn't protect her from the darkness that took her away." Thomas felt the weight of her sorrow. "Tell me about her," he urged gently. "What made her special?" Miriam took a shaky breath, her eyes lighting up with memories. She loved to dance in the rain and pick wildflowers. We would spend hours exploring the fields, her laughter ringing through the air like music. But the day she left, I couldn't save her. As she spoke, Thomas sensed the shadows around them begin to shift, responding to the rawness of her grief. "It's okay to feel pain," he reassured her. "But holding on to that pain can prevent you from remembering the joy she brought into your life." Miriam looked down, her hands trembling as she caressed the flowers. I don't want to forget her," she whispered, "but the ache in my heart feels unbearable." Thomas nodded, understanding her struggle. "What if you could honor her memory by celebrating her life? Share your stories of joy and laughter. Let those memories fill the space that grief has taken." Miriam looked up, her eyes glistening with uncertainty, but also a flicker of hope. "You really think I can?" "I know you can," Thomas said firmly, his voice steady. "Lily lives on in your heart. Let her laughter echo in your memories, and let it guide you to healing." As he spoke, the atmosphere around them began to shift, the shadows receding slightly as if listening to his words. Miriam took a deep breath, her expression softening. "I want to try," she said, her voice stronger now. "I want to remember her joy." Thomas smiled, feeling the energy in the air transform. "That's the first step," he said. "Together, we can celebrate Lily's life." With that, Miriam began to share more stories. Her daughter's first steps, the way she would twirl in the fields, the laughter they shared over simple moments. As she spoke, the atmosphere brightened, the shadows lifting as if they, too, were compelled by her memories. "I remember the way she danced in the rain," Miriam said, a smile breaking through her tears. Her joy was infectious. She would twirl and laugh, and I couldn't help but join her. With each story, the light around them grew warmer, the flowers blooming brighter, reflecting the vibrancy of Lily's spirit. Thomas watched as the sorrow that had once enveloped Miriam began to lift, revealing the beauty of her memories. "I can almost hear her laughter now," Miriam said, her voice filled with awe. "It's as if she's here with me." "Yes," Thomas encouraged, feeling the energy of the moment swell. "Let that laughter guide you. Lily's spirit lives on in the joy you shared." As Miriam continued to share her memories, the shadows melted away completely, leaving behind a radiant light that filled the field. The warmth of the sun bathed them in golden hues, and for the first time, Miriam felt a sense of peace wash over her. "I will remember her joy," she declared, her voice filled with conviction. "I will celebrate her life, not just mourn her loss." With those words, a brilliant light enveloped Miriam, and her spirit began to shine. "Thank you, Thomas," she whispered, her voice a soft melody in the breeze. "You have helped me find my way back to her." As her spirit ascended, Thomas felt a wave of fulfillment wash over him. He had witnessed the power of compassion and connection, and he knew that Miriam would carry Lily's memory forward, no longer bound by sorrow. When he returned to the table with the keepers of memories, they greeted him with nods of approval. "You have done well, Thomas," the first keeper said, their voice filled with warmth. "Miriam's spirit is now free." "I felt her joy return," Thomas replied, a smile on his face. It was an honor to help her." The keepers exchanged glances, their expressions shifting with gratitude. "Your journey is not over. There are still more souls waiting for your light," the second keeper said, gesturing to the remaining memories. "Choose another." Feeling invigorated by his previous success, Thomas looked at the memories of Leo, Jacob, and Anya. Each story was significant, and he felt a connection to all of them. But he was particularly drawn to Leo, the young artist longing to create. "I want to help Leo next," he said, his resolve firm. As the keepers raised their hands again, the shimmering light enveloped him, pulling him into the next memory. The world around him faded, and soon he found himself in a small, dimly lit room filled with paintbrushes, canvases, and half-finished artworks. In the corner, Leo sat hunched over a canvas, his brow furrowed in concentration. The room was filled with colors, but the atmosphere felt heavy, weighed down by unfulfilled dreams. Thomas approached cautiously, not wanting to disturb the young artist's focus. "Leo?" he called softly, hoping to draw the young man's attention. Leo looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Who are you?" "I'm Thomas," he replied, a gentle smile on his face. "I've come to listen to your story." Leo's expression shifted from surprise to skepticism. "What can you do?" "No one understands what it's like to be afraid of failure," he said, frustration lacing his words. "I'm here to help you find your courage," Thomas responded, his heart aching for the young man. "Tell me about your dreams, and we can work through your fears together." With a hesitant breath, Leo looked at his canvas, filled with vivid colors and unfinished strokes. "I wanted to be an artist, to share my vision with the world," he confessed. "But every time I pick up a brush, fear grips me. I worry it won't be good enough." Thomas nodded, feeling the weight of Leo's insecurities. "It's normal to feel afraid," he said gently. "But you must remember that every artist starts somewhere. Creating is about expression, not perfection." Leo glanced at Thomas, his eyes reflecting doubt. "But what if I fail? What if no one appreciates my work?" "Every artist faces that fear," Thomas assured him. "But true artistry comes from within. Your voice deserves to be heard, and the world needs your unique perspective." As Leo listened, Thomas felt the shadows in the room begin to shift, responding to his words of encouragement. "What do you love to paint?" he asked, wanting to draw out the passion within Leo. "I love to capture moments. People laughing, the beauty of nature, the rawness of emotion," Leo replied, a spark of enthusiasm igniting in his eyes. "But I always freeze at the thought of showing it to anyone. Imagine the joy your art could bring to others," Thomas encouraged. "Art connects us. It can evoke feelings we never knew we had. What if you focus on that instead of the fear?" Leo pondered, a flicker of hope brightening his expression. "You think my art could really touch someone?" "I know it can," Thomas replied. "But first, you must create without judgment. Let your brush dance freely on the canvas. Forget about the outcome and just enjoy the process." With newfound determination, Leo picked up his brush, hesitating for just a moment before dipping it into the vibrant colors. Thomas watched as the young man began to paint, his strokes initially tentative but gradually growing bolder. As Leo lost himself in the rhythm of creation, the atmosphere around him shifted dramatically. The room filled with light, the shadows receding as his confidence blossomed. "This feels freeing," Leo admitted, a smile breaking across his face as he painted. "Yes, that's it," Thomas cheered, feeling the energy of the moment resonate deeply within him. "Embrace that freedom. Let your heart guide you." Leo continued to paint, his movements becoming more fluid, more expressive. The colors on the canvas transformed into a vibrant depiction of laughter, joy, and life, capturing a moment that would forever be cherished. As he finished the piece, Leo stepped back, his breath caught in his throat. "I did it," he whispered, disbelief mingling with excitement. "I actually created something." "You did," Thomas exclaimed, feeling a rush of joy for the young artist. "This is beautiful, Leo. It captures your spirit." Leo looked at the painting, a sense of wonder illuminating his face. "Maybe I can share this, maybe it can inspire others," he said, a smile blossoming as he began to envision the possibilities. "Yes, let your voice be heard," Thomas encouraged, feeling a surge of pride for the young artist. "You have the power to inspire others with your unique vision." As the light filled the room, Leo's spirit began to shine, his fears dissolving into the warmth of newfound confidence. "Thank you, Thomas," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You've given me the courage to pursue my dreams." As Leo's spirit ascended, Thomas felt a wave of fulfillment wash over him once more. He had witnessed the transformation of fear into empowerment, and he knew that Leo would go on to create beauty in the world. When he returned to the table with the keepers of memories, they welcomed him with nods of approval. "You have done well, Thomas," the third keeper said, their voice filled with respect. "Leo is now free to pursue his passion. I'm grateful for the opportunity to help him," Thomas replied, the warmth of satisfaction enveloping him. But there are still more stories to tell. The keepers exchanged glances, and the second keeper gestured toward the remaining memories. "Choose another to continue your journey." Feeling a strong connection to Jacob's story, Thomas said, "I want to help Jacob next." The keepers raised their hands again, and the shimmering light enveloped him, transporting him into the next memory. As the world faded, he found himself standing in a dimly lit room filled with shadows, the air thick with a sense of weight and sorrow. In the center of the room stood Jacob, his posture slumped and his gaze lost in the distance. The atmosphere felt heavy, as if the shadows themselves were mourning alongside him. Thomas approached cautiously, wanting to respect the depth of Jacob's grief. "Jacob," he called softly, trying to draw the young man's attention. Jacob turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Who are you?" "I'm Thomas," he replied, his heart aching for the soldier. "I've come to listen to your story." Jacob's expression hardened, and he shook his head. "What's the point? I'm just a failure, someone who couldn't save his friends." "You're not defined by your past," Thomas said gently. "You carry their memories, and your story matters. Sharing it can help you find peace." The shadows around them shifted, their whispers growing louder, as if echoing Jacob's pain. "I saw things I can't unsee," Jacob confessed, his voice filled with anguish. I should have been stronger. I should have done more. Thomas felt the weight of Jacob's guilt and sorrow. It's normal to feel that way, but you must understand that you did what you could, he reassured him. You were brave, and your survival does not diminish their sacrifice. Jacob looked down, his fists clenched in frustration. I can't shake the guilt. I feel like I don't deserve to be here. You are here for a reason, Thomas insisted, his voice steady. You have the power to honor their memory by living fully. They would want you to find peace and joy. As he spoke, the shadows began to shift, the whispers growing softer as if considering his words. But how do I forgive myself? Jacob asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. By allowing yourself to feel and process that pain, Thomas replied. Acknowledge their loss and let it guide you toward healing. You can carry their memory with you, honoring them through your actions. Jacob looked up, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. What if I never find that peace? Peace is a journey, Thomas said gently. It may take time, but it starts with understanding that you are not alone in your grief. Talk about your friends, remember them for who they were, and let their spirits inspire you. With those words, Jacob seemed to shift, the shadows around him beginning to waver as he contemplated the possibility of healing. I remember their laughter, he admitted, his voice a soft whisper, but I buried it beneath the guilt. It's time to unearth that laughter, Thomas encouraged. Let it remind you of the bond you shared, the love that still exists despite their absence. As Jacob listened, the atmosphere began to change, the shadows receding slightly, allowing a gentle light to seep in. I want to try, he said, his voice filled with determination. I want to remember them. Then let's start with a story, Thomas suggested, eager to help him connect with the joy buried beneath the sorrow. Tell me about a moment you shared together. Taking a deep breath, Jacob began to speak, his voice trembling as he recalled the bond he had shared with his fellow soldiers. We were more than just comrades. We were brothers. I remember one night, under the stars, we shared stories and dreams, laughing about the silly things that kept us going. As he spoke, the atmosphere around them brightened, the shadows lifting as if drawn by the warmth of Jacob's memories. We promised to look out for one another, to always be there, Jacob continued, his voice growing steadier. It was a bond one thought would last forever. Those bonds still exist, Jacob, Thomas reminded him. Your friends live on in your heart. Let their laughter fill you, and carry their memories with pride. With each word, Jacob's spirit began to lift, the heaviness in his chest easing as he shared more stories of their camaraderie, their shared struggles, and the moments of joy that had brought them together. As he spoke, the shadows began to fade, replaced by a gentle light that illuminated the room. I can almost hear their voices, Jacob said, a smile breaking through the tears. It feels like they're here with me. Yes, they are with you always, Thomas encouraged, feeling the energy of the moment swell. Honor them by living fully, by sharing their stories with others. As Jacob continued to speak, the shadows melted away completely, leaving behind a radiant light that filled the room. The warmth of that light enveloped them both, and Jacob's spirit began to shine brightly, freed from the shackles of guilt and sorrow. Thank you, Thomas, he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. You've given me the strength to remember them with love, not pain. As Jacob's spirit ascended, Thomas felt a wave of fulfillment wash over him once more. He had witnessed the transformative power of connection and remembrance, and he knew that Jacob would carry his friend's memory forward, no longer burdened by guilt. When he returned to the table with the keepers of memories, they welcomed him with nods of approval. You have done well, Thomas, the second keeper said, their voice filled with warmth. Jacob is now free to honor his friends. I'm grateful for the chance to help him, Thomas replied, feeling the satisfaction of his journey. But there is still one memory left. The keepers exchanged glances, and the fourth keeper gestured toward Anya's memory. Choose the final story and complete your journey. Feeling a deep sense of compassion for the young girl, Thomas said, "I want to help Anya." The keepers raised their hands one last time, and the shimmering light enveloped him, transporting him into the next memory. As the world faded, he found himself standing in a sun-drenched park, filled with laughter and the sweet sound of children playing. In the center of the park stood a group of children, their joy palpable as they chased one another, their laughter ringing through the air. But amidst the laughter, Thomas noticed a solitary figure sitting on a swing, her expression wistful and detached. It was Anya, her spirit shimmering faintly in the sunlight. "Anya," he called gently, approaching her with care. She looked up, surprise flickering in her bright eyes. "Who are you?" "I'm Thomas," he replied, his heart swelling with compassion. "I've come to listen to your story." Anya's gaze fell to the ground, her shoulders drooping. "What's the point? I'm just a memory now, and no one remembers me." "That's not true," Thomas said softly, kneeling beside her. "Your laughter and spirit live on in the hearts of those who loved you. Sharing your story can help keep that spirit alive." Anya looked up, uncertainty etched across her face. "But how can I be remembered? I'm gone." "Your spirit is here," Thomas reassured her. "You can still bring joy to those who loved you by sharing your memories. What do you want to be remembered for?" With a hesitant breath, Anya began to share her stories. The way she loved to dance in the rain, the games she played with her friends, and the dreams she had for the future. As she spoke, Thomas felt the atmosphere shift, the sunlight growing warmer around them. "I remember the joy of playing in the park," Anya said, her eyes lighting up. "I love making people laugh, and I wanted to be a storyteller." "That's a beautiful dream," Thomas encouraged, feeling the light within her spirit begin to glow. "Your stories can still inspire those who remember you." As she spoke, the laughter of the children echoed around them, intertwining with Anya's memories. The shadows that had clung to her began to dissolve, replaced by the warmth of her joyful spirit. "I want to be remembered for the happiness I brought," she said, her voice growing stronger. "I want my friends to know that I love them." "Then let's celebrate that love," Thomas said, feeling the energy of the moment swell. "Share your joy and your dreams with those who cherish you." Anya's spirit began to shimmer with a vibrant light, her laughter mingling with the sounds of the park. "I will remember my friends," she declared, her eyes shining with determination. "I will be their guiding star." With those words, the shadows melted away completely, leaving behind a radiant light that enveloped them both. Anya's spirit began to rise, her laughter echoing in the breeze. "Thank you, Thomas," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've helped me find my way home." As Anya's spirit ascended, Thomas felt a wave of joy wash over him. He had witnessed the beauty of connection and remembrance, and he knew that Anya would continue to inspire others with her spirit. When he returned to the table with the keepers of memories, they welcomed him with nods of approval. "You have completed your journey, Thomas," the fourth keeper said, their voice filled with admiration. "Each soul you touched is now free." "I'm grateful for the opportunity to help them," Thomas replied, his heart full. "But I couldn't have done it without your guidance." The keepers smiled, their expressions warm. "You have become a true night watchman, a guardian of stories. Your compassion and courage will echo through the ages." Feeling a sense of fulfillment, Thomas looked around at the glowing room filled with memories. "What happens now?" he asked, curious about the next steps in his journey. "You may choose to remain here, continuing to help souls find their way," the first keeper said, their gaze steady. "Or you can return to your world, taking the lessons you've learned and sharing them with others." Thomas pondered their words, feeling the weight of the decision before him. He had found purpose in helping others, but he also understood the importance of sharing those lessons beyond the confines of this realm. "I want to return," he finally declared, determination shining in his eyes. "I want to share the stories I've learned and help others find their light." The keepers nodded, their expressions filled with pride. "Then your journey continues. You will carry the light of the Night Watchman with you, guiding others in their darkest hours. With that, the keepers raised their hands and a brilliant light enveloped Thomas. He felt himself being pulled back, the warmth of their guidance surrounding him as the world around him faded into a kaleidoscope of colors. As he returned to his own world, Thomas awoke in his familiar surroundings, the sun rising on the horizon. He felt change, a profound sense of purpose swelling within him. He had become a vessel of compassion, a night watchman ready to help those in need. In the days that followed, Thomas began to share the stories he had learned, finding ways to connect with others and lend an empathetic ear. He volunteered in his community, listened to those who felt lost, and became a beacon of hope for those who had forgotten their light. And every night, as the stars twinkled above, he remembered the souls he had helped, Miriam, Leo, Jacob, and Anya, carrying their stories within him, a reminder that even in darkness, there is always a path to healing and love. And so, the Night Watchman continued his journey, ever watchful, ever compassionate, forever connected to the stories that shaped the world around him. As Thomas settled into his new routine, he often reflected on his experiences as the Night Watchman. Each evening, when the stars began to twinkle in the sky, he would take a moment to connect with the memories of those he had helped. The warmth of their spirits filled his heart, reminding him of the power of love and compassion. One night, as he gazed up at the starlit sky, he felt a gentle whisper in the breeze. It was a familiar feeling, like the soft laughter of Anya or the encouraging words of Leo. He closed his eyes and let the memories wash over him, feeling a profound sense of peace. Inspired by his journey, Thomas decided to host a community gathering in the park where he had often played as a child. He wanted to share the stories of Miriam, Leo, Jacob, and Anya, reminding everyone that every life, no matter how brief, leaves an indelible mark on the world. On the day of the gathering, the park was filled with laughter and light. Families spread blankets on the grass. Children chased one another, and the scent of delicious food wafted through the air. Thomas stood before the crowd, his heart swelling with gratitude and purpose. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Today, we celebrate not just the joys of life, but also the stories that connect us all." He shared the tales of the souls he had encountered, their struggles, and the profound lessons he had learned. As he spoke, the crowd listened intently, their eyes reflecting the emotions woven into each story. He spoke of Miriam's grief transformed into hope, Leo's fear turned into courage, Jacob's guilt met with remembrance, and Anya's spirit shining brightly in the joy of her laughter. With each story, Thomas felt the presence of those souls beside him, their spirits intertwined with his words. He encouraged the listeners to honor their own loved ones, to share their stories, and to remember that even in the darkest times, love endures. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Thomas invited everyone to join in a moment of reflection. He encouraged them to think of someone they had lost, to remember their laughter, their kindness, and the impact they had on their lives. "Let us create a chain of light," he said, inviting everyone to hold hands. Together, we can honor the memories that shape us and share the love that connects us all. In that moment, the air filled with a palpable energy, a sense of unity and understanding binding the crowd together. Thomas felt a warmth enveloping him, the spirits of Miriam, Leo, Jacob, and Anya shining brightly, encouraging him to continue his work. As the gathering concluded, people shared their own stories, laughter mingling with tears, creating an atmosphere of healing and hope. Thomas smiled, knowing that each voice added to the tapestry of connection he had begun to weave. As he left the park that night, Thomas looked up at the stars twinkling above, feeling the light of those he had helped surrounding him. He realized that the role of the night watchman wasn't just about guiding others. It was about cherishing the bonds that unite us all, past, present, and future. From that day forward, Thomas continued to embrace his calling, helping others find their voices, share their stories, and discover their light. The legacy of the night watchman grew, becoming a beacon of hope in his community. And so, With each night that fell and every story shared, the spirit of the Night Watchman lived on, a testament to the enduring power of love, compassion, and the memories that shape our lives. In the end, Thomas understood that he was never truly alone. He carried the spirits of those he had helped within him, guiding him as he walked his own path, ever watchful, ever compassionate, forever illuminated by the light of the stories that connected them all.